pleased to be joined by medium Mathew Tow. Welcome to Petty Astrology.
Thank you for having me, Kaycee. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. So, I have been a fan of yours for some time now. Me and my friends that are in mediumship development, we kind of just stumbled into it. It just sort of happened to us.
Hmm.
None of us were like, "Oh, we're gonna do the medium thing now." It just like as it seems to happen to a lot of people, that's what happened to
Hmm.
us. And my dear friend Mackenzie, who is an astrologer also and is often on this podcast, she was like, I follow these really lovely mediums that you guys should check out. And it was you and your business partner, Dana. So I just wanted to thank Mackenzie for putting us, in touch with each other at all, because that's how you came to my attention. So
Thank you, Mackenzie. I owe you an edible arrangement. So just DM me and let me know where I can send that. So thank you.
she'll be taking you up on that. She is very hungry. So don't you worry about that. I'm a big fan of your podcast as well. You have a podcast with Dana, and it's called I'm a Medium, Ask Me How. Tell me about that. Like, how did you guys get started?
Oh boy. So we just couldn't shut up about mediumship. Literally, it was all that we talked about. So I found her through TikTok.
Mm.
And what was ironic about it is that she grew up about 7 miles from where I lived at the time as a kid in Colorado. And so she would drive by my grandma's house every single day. And I just happened to be like, I think I know her. And I don't know how I know her because I saw her reading on a live. And so then we just got to chatting. And I was doing at that time Yellow Pages of Psychics because I love mediumship and I like watching really great mediums work. And I was like, why aren't these people being talked about enough? Like, I'm seeing all these people on TikTok with really low numbers that were doing phenomenal work. And I know that she had secretly told me, and if I'm supposed to talk about this on the podcast, whatever, it's now part of it. So she's going to have to accept it. Is that she was hoping that I would make one on her. And I
Oh.
made one on her without knowing that. And so then we became really good friends and we started teaching first. And that was something that we'd always agreed on, that our friendship came first and we would never do anything that was not going to be fun. We're like, if there's no fun in it or we're dull, we're not going to do it. And so we ended up teaching first from my memory, and then we ended up creating the podcast. And so we really wanted it to be something that made it tangible for people to understand that it's not woo as much as we make it out to be and how much Hollywood makes it out to be, that it's really accessible. And so that's something that we just ended up having a jumping off point, and we just kept going and going in episodes and episodes later.
I love it. I love what you guys are doing. It's very sweet for me to watch you because I know that you're friends and you guys talk about your
Mm-hmm.
friendship and relationship to teaching. So I feel like that adds just another special element to it. But the information that you guys provide has been really helpful to me as I've been on my development journey.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so nice to have resources for people that are pretty grounded, I think, in the way that they approach this work.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did you get into mediumship?
Oh, I stumbled into a metaphysical store just like everybody else. I walked in one day and I went through the shops. I was looking at the crystals and all that stuff. And at this point, I wasn't spiritual at all. Like, I had no inclination to it. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. And the shopkeeper looked at me and she goes, "You talk to dead people and you've seen dead people before." And I was like, "What? Am I like a superhero?" Because she made it like seem really exciting. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Okay, cool." And so through Facebook, after leaving that shop, I was like, maybe I am. I don't know. There was a development circle that was an intuitive circle live at that shop, popped up on my Facebook page. And it was like, this is happening on Thursday night at 6 o'clock. And I was like, maybe I'm interested. I'll go. And I can remember being in the shower and I was getting ready to go. And I just remember this voice came through and they said, "This is going to change your life." And it wasn't like, "Oh, I'm going to change my life going here." It was very forceful. And it was, "You are going to change your life." It's like somebody was talking to me. And I can remember being like, okay, that's it. I walked into the development circle. I was really nervous. I was uncomfortable because you're going into a place where you're like, am I going to join a cult? Like,
Right.
are they going to hand me Kool-Aid? Because I might drink it. I do love Kool-Aid. Um, and I was really nervous. And I can remember for an intuitive circle, it's all psychic. Like, you're doing some psychic exercises, but mediumship kept happening.
Mm.
and it kept coming up, and I was landing all these things that I couldn't have known. And then I ended up just going back week after week, and it almost became my church.
Right.
And that was my life for a good maybe 2 years, and then I ended up going online. This was in 2018, and then COVID happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember sitting in the circle, and everyone was really scared to get COVID, so we
Right.
ended up disbanding it and not going as much. But that was like my feet all into it. And then I remember mediumship kept happening in an intuitive circle, and they're like, honey, we're not here for that. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean we're going to bend straws with our mind? I don't really want to pay $20 for that. And one of the ladies had passed me a Journey Within's business card, and she was like, you need to go here. And I don't know if you know who Janet Nohavec is.
Mm-hmm.
She is a phenomenal medium, or was. She's no longer with us. God rest her soul. And she resonated with me in that very grounded mediumship way.
Yeah.
I like the fact that I will never forget, she said to the class, I sat with God every single day, and this is what God told me. And it was a personal relationship. And I think at that point, something in her book, I haven't read her book, I'm sorry, Janet, said that the church didn't like the fact that she was talking to spirit.
Right.
So she was like, fine, screw it, I'll do my own church. And I think that was probably one of the best choices that she's ever done for a lot of mediums.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really great introduction for me to a really grounded mediumship, because I walked in, and the first thing that they said in that circle is, we don't do rescue circles. We
Right.
don't do possessions. We don't talk about this. You're here to learn mediumship, and this is what we're going to teach you. And I never looked back.
What do you say to people that like are in that position where they're new to mediumship and the spirit world, and they're kind of freaked out by it, by like the rescue stuff that you can see out there and the possessions and all that stuff?
Try out as many circles as possible. I think that's one thing that we don't realize, is that even though you may be in a small town and you're going to a development circle, that it might not be the right fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people get trapped. I think listen to your inner voice. I think you're going to know what's right for you. There's plenty of different perspectives. I think one thing that me and Dana teach at our school is that you really need to find your own voice and listen to what your own experience is. And so if you're not having those experiences personally, disregard it or hold it aside, right? Because I think a lot of the time when I find out, when people are like, oh, this, I'm like, but have you experienced that? Is that something that you've personally experienced? And they're like, no, somebody told me that. And usually it comes down to, with a lot of fear-based mediumship, it's usually somebody told them,
Right.
or maybe they have a bias from their own personal religious beliefs or how they grew up that paints mediumship. And so I kind of hold space for those people, because I think they just are going through their own experience, and I can't tell them that they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you, in thousands of readings that I've had, I've never once encountered any of that. And
Yeah.
some people could make that argument, well, you're not looking for it. Well, I don't really protect myself at all.
Right.
You know what I mean? I almost invite it in so I can change my opinion on that, because I want the spirit world to show me what the spirit world is on its own terms,
Right.
and be as neutral as I can. So I would say to those people, listen to your inner voice, go to different circles. If one is right to you, that's great. If it ends up not being right for you later on, that's okay. Go try another one. Learn from as many people as you can, because I think when you are looking from the different sides of the glass, and everyone's looking at the same glass but different perspectives, you're going to formulate your own way, right? You're going to be like, okay, that works for me, that doesn't, and you're going to make your own.
Something I talk about a lot on this podcast is that religious conditioning that a lot
Mhm.
of us go through, that really shapes how we come to spirituality maybe later in life. Or was that something that you had to go through?
No, I wasn't baptized into any church. My brother was, but I wasn't. I laugh because he's not religious at all anymore. But
Didn't work.
No, it didn't stick. They tried. They even tried water, and I was like, "You're not going to clean that off." For him, he didn't have a choice, but for me, I did. I didn't get baptized. I didn't really go to church a lot, but the experiences that I had with certain churches
Hmm.
weren't pleasant.
Yeah.
Right. Being part of the alphabet mafia myself,
Yes.
I'm I'm a don in that. Um, I realized that, I'm not welcome in some cultures and
Right.
some belief systems, but also being a part of a youth group in Colorado when I had visited one, when one of my friends had brought me there, the pastor was walking around and he was putting his hands on people and they were falling
Hmm.
on the floor hissing.
Okay.
And he got to me and I was like, girl, you lay your hands on me. I'm not going to hiss. I am going to walk out. Right. So it was a lot of shock and fear. And
Yeah.
that's something that I just had a lot of an experience with, was
Hmm.
like more control and containment. Like, how
Right.
are we going to keep you here? But I knew that something was bigger. There was something bigger out there. And I think that as I've done this work, I've realized that it's man that interprets wrong,
Hmm.
right? And I really kind of resonated as an adult more with spirituality,
Hmm.
because it was away from man-made constructed religion,
Hmm.
but it was more of how, if there's 7 billion people in this world, Kaycee, how is one group right?
Yeah.
That was where my head kept going. I was like, you have all these beautiful cultures. You have Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Catholicism, all these beautiful cultures. And how is one more important than the other? So I think at that point, I just committed to being part of the human spirit.
Right.
And I was like, that feels right, because that celebrates everybody and no one's left out. So I think with religion, with me, and the way that it's honed my craft, it's just the more that everyone's welcome,
Yeah. I
and it
love
makes it
that.
easier. Yeah.
Yeah, and that speaking of looking at your astrology, that is a very Aquarian sentiment, I feel like. And you're an Aquarius sun and Mercury.
100%. I would say, like, I'm an Aquarius to a fault.
You do feel very Aquarian to me.
Oh,
Like,
for sure.
yeah, and you are very intelligent, and I think that that really comes across. But I also just really like the way that you speak with a sense of confidence and authority in what you know. Like, you know that you're good
Hmm.
at what you do, you know that you have these experience and the training. And I just love to watch you not back down from that. And I think that there can
Yeah.
be a lot of pressure, especially like online with all kinds of like conversation and,
Hmm.
people get points for going at each other and stuff. And I just have observed you stick with what you know.
Hmm. It's tough. I can tell you, being because my opinion isn't popular. Like, once I'm like, demons aren't real, they're like, oh my god, I slayed like the darkest demons on the internet, and I'm like, oh my god,
Rude.
girl, simmer down, buff. Um, but for me, I know it's not a popular opinion,
Hmm.
and so I prepare for the backlash and the pushback,
Sure.
because I don't want to invalidate somebody's experience. But then I'm looking at all these people that are being left vulnerable and powerless.
Yeah.
And so I think what really drives my passion and my education and my confidence is, I'll never forget, I was in a reading and they had gotten a reading from a famous medium. We're not going to say their name, uh, but they had gotten a reading and this medium had told them, your loved one's trapped, your loved one's stuck.
Right.
And I'll never forget her reaction. She turned to me and she goes, I was preparing to take my own life that night
Oh,
because I wanted to go save my loved one.
that's horrifying.
And so it got me thinking. I was laying in bed and I'm like, here I am, as lucky as I can be to lay my head on my pillow and not think about, because I had just gotten a reading from a student earlier that day and it was beautiful. And I'm like, I'm so lucky to be able to lay my head on my pillow knowing my loved one's okay. And this poor person has to lay there with no closure
Yeah.
at all, at all. And they have to wonder if today is the day that their loved one crosses over. And so I look at that as more of an empowerment to these people. So I think when I say my confident statements, I'm more trying to just reassure somebody who's had their loved one take their own life, know that they're okay, and that maybe it was just the medium's interpretation of what had happened. And so that they can lay their head on their pillow at night and grieve in peace, right? I think a lot of mediums, when they're out there working and not having a sense of control in
Hmm.
what they're saying or thought,
Yeah.
and that's not belief system. Like, you can believe what you want to believe, but like, we can do it in a better way, right? We can
Absolutely.
do it in a kinder way. But it's not easy. I do get a lot of pushback for it.
Yeah. I I do think that for me, my boundary with that stuff is like, is it causing harm to people? And like the example
Hmm.
that you said, absolutely. Like that's super harmful to tell
Hmm.
people these things that are so emotionally affecting. And like there is a certain amount of power that we have as readers to, we have to be very careful about what we say, and the way that we say it is something that I have observed. And
Hmm.
that's kind of when I as well will say something, and I guess make drama about it, as people that
Yeah.
don't like when people that say something that they don't like, it's just
Yeah.
drama. But to me, that's the difference between like truly what is drama and something that is actually worth saying something about, because it does cause a lot of harm, and it can
Yeah.
really destroy people's lives and their psychology, especially if they're in a fragile place. So I really
Hmm.
appreciate that you consider that so much. And I also love like looking at your astrology here.
Go
You know,
for
so
it.
you are a Cancer rising, just like me, which I was very excited to see. I was like, okay,
So what's
yeah,
that mean? What's
okay.
that mean? Tell me about it.
Yeah, so what it means is, well, so first of all, rising sign can also tell us about appearance. It's not like the only factor in somebody's appearance, but
Hmm.
I mean, for the audience, we have two Cancer risings right here. So you can kind of compare the faces, right? I think for us, like, first of all, Cancer is ruled by the moon. So
Hmm.
oftentimes I feel like you look at a Cancer rising and you're like, I see some moon in this bitch. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Um, I noticed we have very watery eyes with that
Hmm.
water rising sign. So that's another thing that I think is pretty common with us. We tend to have some roundness to the face. It's not, like we don't all look the
Interesting.
same. Yeah. So there can be also a little bit of a little bit of a glow to us, like the moon. It's moon vibes. We also tend to be very physically intuitive. And
Hmm.
that was something that was kind of like wild to me as I started learning astrology. And then eventually I came to intuitive work and mediumship. And I was like, holy shit, my whole life, that's what that was. Like, I just thought, I've been told I've been too sensitive,
Hmm.
crybaby. That might have been something that you heard as well.
Did your parents drop me off at my parents' house? Because that sounds oddly familiar.
Right? It's actually really funny. This is not super related to any of this. Before I even saw your astrology, I would joke to my friends. I was like, I feel like Matt looks like what I would have like an older brother look like. And I and
Hmm.
and then I looked at your chart. I was like, oh, we're just Cancer risings.
Yeah.
Like that's the vibe. That's just like some of the stuff that kind of comes to mind. Oftentimes with Cancer risings too, there's usually some family stuff going
Hmm.
on. There's like some, and everybody's got that, but I feel like it's a little more pronounced for us. And we both have, like, you and I both have three planets in the fourth house, so I'm sure we've got like a lot of family stories that we could
Do you want to
exchange.
trade? Let's
Yeah,
play a game.
yeah, we could be here all day with that. But the other thing that I wanted to point out, so because you're Cancer rising, we have a similar layout for our chart. Just means like the houses kind of start in not the same but similar enough places to where
Hmm.
we probably have some stuff in common. Put it that way. And so for you, like your sixth house, which is work, it's our health, it's how we are of service in the world. And so you've got Neptune there, you got Jupiter there, and your Venus there. And so like it's in Sagittarius is the sign on the cusp there. And so just you as an educator, like that's like multiple, ding, ding, ding in there as an
Hmm.
educator. And also, Neptune's in there and you do intuitive work. So it's just kind of like, no shit, you teach mediumship.
Yeah. God was like, we're gonna need vaulted ceilings and mediumship. Thank
Yeah,
you. In these
exactly.
houses.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, you have an eighth house sun too. That's very, very talking to dead people vibes. Eighth house is that's kind of the mediumship place.
Oh.
One of them. I would say eighth house, and then 12th house would maybe be like secondary. It's a little bit different. But and then you have your moon in the 12th house as well. So you just have a lot of like intuitive markers.
Oh.
Shocking, I
Oh.
know, for the medium. I know,
That's exciting.
right? It's almost like astrology is reflective of our lived experience.
It's so funny because I've never really been into astrology, but the
Hmm.
more that I like learning about it, the more it's fascinating. But you guys literally have like, look, I can teach you how to do dead people like this, right?
Yeah.
Like, but you guys have to study. Like, you
Yeah, we're
literally have to study.
nerds. We're
But I
nerds for
love that
real.
about people.
Yeah, we are really nerdy. That's the thing that I don't think people understand about astrology. I'm like, you want to become an astrologer? Have at it, baby girl. But like, you are going to be reading the most boring shit you've ever read in your life. Seriously, you gotta want it. You gotta want it so bad.
It's like algebra of spirituality.
It is. I'm not joking. Like, it was. I remember when I was early in my studies, I was looking at it. I was like, I don't know how I'm ever gonna like be fluent in this. And now it's just like whatever, whatever.
You're
But
like a tangent. I don't know if that's an actual astrology word, but you got those.
yeah,
Oh man,
but
I
it is
can't
very
do it.
nerdy. Yeah,
I bow down to you. I can't do it. I literally can't.
that's okay. That's okay. I'm happy to be the nerdy astrologer and like translate it for people.
Okay,
And that's,
good.
that's I don't know that I'll ever. I'm not. I don't know what it is. I'm not like I have another friend of mine who is often on this podcast, Jen.
Hmm.
Wonderful teacher. I'm just not. I'm not a teacher in the same way. Like I don't see myself like sitting in front of a class and being like, "This is your sun, and this is what it means."
Hmm.
I'll probably do it, I guess, in my own way, and like I'm writing some stuff, but it's just I don't know. Not teaching astrology is like a very particular skill that I don't know that I have.
I think you could do it. You know what I
Mm,
see you doing? Sneaking it in, almost
mm,
like it's like, here's a treat, but you're going to
yes,
learn something.
that's
And
kind of
they're
what
going
I
to be
do
like,
here.
oh my God, Kaycee taught me that.
Yeah,
That's what I think you
exactly.
should do. Just
That's
go for it.
exactly what I do on this podcast. Pretty much is like I just give
Hmm.
little nuggets and then, I'm
Just
like,
be like,
this is
this is
happening.
what you need. This is a
Yeah,
treat for you. Okay, bye. See you later.
a little
I think that's
sampler.
successful. But
Yeah,
people digest it better. So
yeah.
like as I'm listening to your podcast, because now I'm on a rabbit hole, that's what I love. It's literally like a little like drop, and you're not being force fed. Because I think
Yeah.
people, especially in this TikTok society that we're
Mm-hmm.
in, right? It's digestible.
Yes,
And I think when we overwhelm people with information, it's too much. And so then
it
they
is.
give up on it. And especially with astrology, because I've seen books and I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't got time for that.
It's a lot. It is a lot to commit to. I had a really weird experience coming to astrology, and you're probably just going to be like, yeah, doing the
Tell me about
spirit
it.
work that you do.
Mm-hmm.
So it was 2021. I was unemployed. No, I was employed. That was the thing. I was employed. I was working on a Star Trek show. And so it
Mm-hmm.
was very
That's one
exciting.
does.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
as one does. It was very cool. I was like having the time of my life writing science fiction, wonderful. And then one day they were like, actually, CBS doesn't want to do this show anymore. And we're just going to pay you out and send you home. And I was like, oh, okay, that sucks.
Oh no.
But prior to that, I had literally just signed up for like a very introductory, like foundational astrology class. My objective was just like I'd like to look at my chart and know what I'm looking at.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big thing. And I was like, it's going to be something that I'm going to have to do, like watch the recordings back on the weekends because I'm working this very demanding job. And then that job just disappeared. So suddenly I had like all this free time.
So you were all in.
I was
It was either eBay or
yes,
astrology, and you
yes.
opted for astrology. I love that.
I was like, well, I guess I'm going to be like taking this class very seriously now because suddenly I have a lot of free time. And like it just worked really well for me.
Mm-hmm.
It worked with my brain in a way that I did not expect, and I just couldn't stop doing it. It was
Did
just
you feel like really pulled to it? You were like, this actually like feels like me.
it was like it wasn't like I knew at that moment that I was going to become an astrologer, but it was literally like something that I was just doing for fun that
Mm-hmm.
became very clear that I was not going to be able to just do it like a couple hours a week. It was just like I couldn't it was the way that I kind of describe it is like it's kind of the glasses that I see the world with now
Mm-hmm.
because it's a language. So it's like it applies to everything. It can describe everything. And so for me now, I just see everything in the language of astrology. And so like once that ball got rolling and then once it like picked up momentum, it was just like, oh, you're a fucking astrologer.
Surprise.
Surprise. Yeah. And then to help with the astrology, I was like, this was last year. It was March of 2023. And a friend who is a lovely medium, medium Carrie Wilson, she posted, I had readings with her before, and she posted,
Hmm.
like, I'm teaching a beginner's foundations class. And I was like, I don't know why. And I remember thinking it was really weird. I was like, I don't know why I want to take this class. And I love her. It wasn't anything
Hmm.
about her. I was
Yeah.
just like, what? Why? And then I did it. And then my friend surprised me by also joining the class. So we all developed together. It was really
So
cute.
you had a mediumship buddy.
I have a whole group of mediumship
Oh
buddies.
my god!
I
Do you
know.
guys
And
cheat off each other's tests?
yeah, yes,
I love that.
we actually, you know, it's really funny though, because we are as close as we are. We actually had to be told, like, you need to stop like doing the big brain thing that you guys do with each other, because
Oh,
we are just too connected at this point where it's like we on a regular basis are finishing each other's thoughts and saying things. It's just weird.
yeah. So you have Dana Willis. So you have like what I
Yes,
have. Yeah.
yes.
I call her all the time and I was like, are you on your way to Taco Bell? And she's like, no. But I'm like, okay, what's your order at Star? And like, I'll start doing her order
Hmm.
as she's pulling into Starbucks. So like, I know where she is at all times because we're
Hmm.
like that synced. So I get it. I understand it. But it makes it more
Yeah,
enjoyable because you have somebody that understands you.
yeah.
Because I think one thing that we realize about spiritual people
Hmm.
is you lose a lot of like normal people around you because they're like, is this all you talk about?
Yeah.
You're weird, right?
Literally.
Or you
Literally.
have experiences that
Hmm.
nobody else can understand. So when you find these group of people that are around you and they
Hmm.
get you and they
Yes.
understand it because it's a shared life experience, oh,
Hmm.
let those hold on to those people.
Yeah,
Like, don't let them go.
absolutely. That's the Cancerian in us talking,
Mm-hmm.
because
100%.
it's so important. And what I realize is in both astrology and mediumship is that I feel like having that camaraderie, it makes the education part of it go a lot quicker, it seems like,
Mm-hmm.
because you're just bouncing off of each other, you're learning from each other's experiences and your own. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been a really, really special experience, because it does feel like, you know, when people are like, I've been getting a lot of FYP readings lately. They're like, you're finding your soul tribe. And I'm like, bitch, what do you know?
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question for you, Kaycee.
Yes, please.
Have you dipped your toes into tarot yet?
I have. Actually, that was, so prior to that astrology class, I woke up
Mm-hmm.
one day. I remember it was like very random. My girlfriend at the time was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Because I was like, I need to go get a tarot deck today. Today. I just woke
Get
up.
in the car. We're going to Barnes.
Yeah, it was weird. It was actually very strange. And I just, it was just like a summer day and just like go get a tarot deck. So we were out and doing our things. I got my tarot deck. I was given a tarot deck like years prior, and it wasn't until I got this particular deck that I was like, I'm very serious about it. Um, so yes, the answer is yes. I've been doing tarot.
What's your go-to deck?
So I have been really, the one that I got that day
Mm-hmm.
has been the Ride or Die, and it's the Rider Waite Smith Centennial version. If you know her,
Ooh,
there
I
you
know
go.
her. I know her
Yeah.
quite well. I love her.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the Rider Waite Smith deck, but it's a little bit like the coloring is slightly less bold. It's
Mm-hmm.
a little calmer, so I don't
It's
get too
easier in the
excited.
eyes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think the color really takes you out. But have
Hmm.
you like has that astrology actually helped you with the cards? Because I know they're really
Yeah.
kind of interlinked.
You know what? Here's my hot take on this. I have a hot
Oh
take about tarot and
my god, go
astrology.
for
I don't think we should mix tarot and astrology at all.
it. Why?
I
Tell me,
know.
tell me, tell me.
Okay, so as an astrologer, when I hear people referencing, "Oh, this card means this," I'm going, "No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Liar,
Liar, lies."
liar.
Yeah, it doesn't work
Uh,
for me. The correspondences, and I know, I try not to be. I try not to be an asshole about it, because
yeah.
it doesn't make sense to me as an astrologer. I understand like generally where people are coming from, but I'm like, usually it's just not, it's not the same. And so
Hmm.
as an astrologer, my best advice for people that read tarot is I would just avoid that. I would just
Just don't
avoid,
mix it in.
I would just not correspond it with, I don't think, first of all, I don't think it's necessary.
Hmm.
And second of all, I think it's just, there's very separate things. They're very separate things. And I know that the symbolism might help, you know, understand certain things or might relate. But in terms of like, you know, the Hierophant is Taurus. No, I don't think, I don't see it. I'm not seeing it, girl.
Yeah, I don't think this. What? And it's not the Sun card. What is the Aquarius card? I can't think of it.
The
It's
star is usually
the
what people,
Star. I don't resonate with the Star.
there you
I
go.
don't.
There you go.
So.
That's evidence.
So yeah,
That's evidence.
validated. I
Yeah,
love it.
that's the study. Packing it up. We're done. No, don't mix the two. But yeah, do you read tarot?
I dabble.
You
I
do.
dabble. It's not my forte, but I
Mm-hmm.
really kind of love it to just kind of loosen up a little bit
Mm-hmm.
when I'm going to do a psychic reading,
Okay.
because I feel like it kind of gives you that kickstart to just kind of have a little bit of something, but to like let go. Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
like a true believer that tension, no matter if it's psychism, mediumship, or anything that you do, kinks whatever you're doing, right?
Absolutely.
So if there's something that can help you relax, but not have you fundamentally relying on it,
Mm-hmm.
because everything is coming through you, like that's just a tool.
Right.
Like essentially your intuition is kicking off based on what you're seeing that you're inspired by or in spirit of
Right.
the card. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just I'll like pull 3 cards at the beginning, and then I'm just like, okay, there's this phrase I use, it's called "that's all I have for you." And that's usually when I take off my gloves and just kind of give it to you a little bit, where
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, okay, that's all I have for you, and now we need to talk about this, and I'll just start going off, and then I'm like, okay, I let it loose. But I just like to get it to where I can kind of relax. It's like a cocktail where I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna have
Mm-hmm.
this cocktail, relax a little bit, kick up my feet and play.
Yeah.
But I don't get into it where I'm like, this crab needs 98 degrees that you're going to see a bluebird on your left. Like
Yeah.
people get really intense with it, and there's
Yeah.
amazing educators. I just use it more as like a tool. It's a
Right.
tool.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that you. I haven't seen you ever. I haven't seen you ever throw any cards around. So.
I yeah, I do. I actually have like one of my favorite decks. Hold on one second. We're gonna do some camera magic. Ready?
Yay.
And I always keep them in a jar. It's the animated tarot. It's
Ooh.
holographic. It moves, and
I
like
like
because
that.
I'm artsy, I'm an
Yeah.
Aquarius.
Just speaking of art, because I that was something that really that also stood out to me about your readings and watching you read on live streams. By the way, if you don't follow Mathew Tow on TikTok, you should because he does readings and it's just amazing to watch
Thank
what
you.
you do. Like you're I would say stunning reader.
Thank you so much. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
like me and my development crew, I don't know what to call us, uh, gang. We
Posse.
posse,
You're a
sure,
posse.
yeah,
Yeah.
all of the above. Uh, we are just like just wow. We were like, we can't wait till we're hopefully at that point at some, just the way that you deliver information is amazing and so fluid. So everybody go follow Mathew Tow.
Thank you.
Uh,
That's like that really means a lot. It really does.
I'm
Like
picky.
you're gonna make me cry on this
Oh, good.
podcast.
I love making people cry on my podcast. Yeah, I love complimenting people into
Thank
where
you.
it's maybe past the point where it's like slightly uncomfortable. It's like, okay, enough, enough.
You had Kaycee. We can have date 2. That's fine.
Okay,
You already
yeah.
had me.
Okay, slay, slay. Let's keep doing it. I love bringing people on the podcast. I love yapping. And you're right. It is very difficult to relate to people that just like aren't into this stuff at a certain
Yeah.
point. So it is really nice to like connect with people that get it. One of the things that you do in your reading sometimes is you do what's called spirit art,
Hmm.
which is where you're drawing what you're seeing in spirit, and it's really magical because you're an
Yeah.
amazing artist in addition to all the other stuff that you do. But that's in your astrology as well, and I would just say I don't know if you are you. I'm assuming you're a past lives person.
I'm not.
You're not. I
You
love
would
this.
think I would be
Okay.
because I'm so awesome and amazing. No, I'm
Yeah.
just kidding. I'm just not.
Okay.
I believe in them
Hmm.
by all means. Like I'll give you my quick rundown.
Yes,
I
please.
believe in them. I don't think that they're necessarily helpful to know.
I
Does
agree.
that kind of make sense?
Yes, and I
Um,
agree. I fully
I
agree.
had one done.
Hmm.
Mine was validatable. I was able to
Okay.
actually find evidence, and I found out who I was, and I found
Wow.
out I had 2 children, and
Wow.
that gutted me. It gutted me.
Really?
Yeah, because I've always had this maternal side to me that I always like wanted to be a parent,
Hmm.
but I have no parental bone in my body.
Oh.
But there's always this yearning, and then to find out that I have 2 children, and it would always come up in dreams that I had 2 kids,
Right.
and it was that feeling of missing something,
Yeah.
like you're hollow, and it's this pull. And so I found that out, and I just was like, how? Why would I want to know that? if I can't interact with them, and if I
Right.
do interact with them, they're going to be like, this guy's full of shit, right?
Yes.
So it just, I didn't find it necessarily helpful. I think it's kind of good to know that your soul does continue on at some point in level, but I think people get hung up on what the other life did, right? And they're like, well, I've got, okay, let's pretend we're going to role play, Kaycee.
Yes.
Okay, you're my abusive sister, because apparently we're siblings now.
Yes.
You left me at the Six Flags, and I died from heat exhaustion. So this life, I then in turn am now forced to reconcile at some point with you because of something else that happened that I now have no control over.
Right.
And people let that rule their life a little bit.
Oh yeah.
I think we need to look at it more of a clean slate, that you lived, you died, you learned, now you're in this incarnation and you've got things that you need to deal with here and now, and not to blame here and now on something that is not even you.
No, it's not.
It's a part of your soul, but it's not you in this
Right.
incarnation. So that's my hot take on past lives. But continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're fine. I fully endorse that hot take. I agree. I've
Mm-hmm.
said almost the same thing on this podcast previously, because I do think that people tend to get really distracted by it, and it's just like, we're living this life, and
Yeah.
it's kind of, to me, it's another form of escapism that people engage in, which is, it's fine to dabble in a little escapism, but we're here to live a life. I fully agree. I love what you just said. What I will say is that, looking at your chart, I wonder if you did not have some like past history of being an artist, because it just feels like a very natural space for you to be in, looking
Yeah.
at your astrology.
Well, I mean, trauma, childhood
Well, there
trauma
you
will do
go.
that to you, right? No, I really used my art as more of an escape from my childhood. I grew up on a lot of like Disney movies and animation. And so for me, it was more of an escapism. But what was crazy looking back is I can remember getting hits, intuitive hits, as I was drawing,
Mm.
because I have ADHD, and it would take me off into this soft space where my mind would just kind of go blank, and I would have stories playing through my head.
Mm-hmm.
And now, kind of looking back, it all kind of makes sense that I think that was some sort of guide communication,
Yeah.
and it kept me safe. And so I eventually, as an adult, became an illustrator or a comic book artist, and I had to draw entire comic books. And for them, it was a page a day. Like, you don't get paid until the book sells, so you need to draw as fast as you can to get it
Yeah.
out. So I think that we all learn skills throughout this life. And like, you may think that like crocheting is some stupid hobby, but you're learning that and you have a desire to learn it for a reason. You just don't know why and how it's going to become useful.
Yeah.
And so I think spirit put art in my path for this purpose, to get me to draw fast, to be able to give somebody a reading with a picture of their loved one. And I think it all kind of comes together. Now, am I the most successful comic book artist of all time? No, but it really did set me up for success to be able to read within 30 minutes and have a full illustration of your loved one, of what I'm seeing. I'd say anybody that wants to pursue it, go take life drawing classes. Go draw your friends, your animals, your pets, shapes of noses, shapes of faces, but set timers for yourself. Don't worry about detail. I think a lot of people think that like, when I'm drawing the spirit, that it needs to be like accurate 100%. They're using my reference, but they're also flashing it at me. And so a lot of that, of when I'm drawing a spirit, is recall.
Right.
So I'm taking a memory, I'm taking an image, and if they can hold it, and the problem is with clairvoyance, it's a flash and it's gone. For them, if they want their drawing drawn, and I can't always guarantee it's going to happen in a reading, so please don't go book with me expecting it, is that if they can hold the image a fraction longer for my brain to capture it, I'm able to draw it, right? But a lot of the time, it's just like a side profile, or they'll move a little bit, and I'm like, damn, can you hold still?
Right.
You're dead. You don't have a lot of movement in you. But it's a skill, I think, that really kind of puts a reality on the spirit world.
It's an amazing piece of evidence to be able to provide
Yeah.
somebody. Like, I can't think of anything that's more like, I've got him right in front of me, especially
Yeah.
for people that haven't had readings before. It's like, whoa.
It lets them know it's real. There's an artist, and God, I'm so sorry I don't know his name, but he is from Brazil, and I know Megan Elise is going to yell at me of not knowing his name. I'll find it and I'll put it in your comments in your video, where he goes into a trance like state. He has sometimes he's blindfolded, where I'm
Mhm.
like, ooh, we love a little kink, and he puts it down and he has his paints on the side of his canvas, and he's channeling when he's doing it, and he's channeling artists, and they're
Wow.
painting full images with color and paint, and this is over 30 minutes while he's blindfolded or in a trance-like state. So the spirit
That's
world
amazing.
can do amazing things. We just don't know the possibilities of it until we try.
Yeah.
And so I encourage your listeners, try, play with it.
Yeah. I think it's amazing. It's very, very cool. And what you were saying about getting like almost intuitive hits as you were doing your art, you have Uranus in your fifth house. And so that energy is very like epiphanies and just things kind of
Mm-hmm.
popping into your head. So it's fascinating. The fifth house is where we can express our creativity. It's, our the things that we give birth to, which includes art. So it's fascinating that you can see it very clearly in your astrology as
That's
well.
fascinating. Oh my
Hmm.
god, Uranus is now my planet. I love it.
Your anus is your planet. And also, so in terms of being an Aquarian, you got the Sun and Mercury in Aquarius. It's the that sign is ruled by Saturn and Uranus, so you're a very Uranian person, and I'm also a pretty Uranian person. Actually, we have another thing in common. It's not going to play out the same because you're an Aquarius Mercury, I'm a Scorpio Mercury, but both of
Mm-hmm.
us have our Mercury sextile Uranus, which I think is another thing that makes us very intuitive because we are just having those hits all the time. And it's
Mm-hmm.
probably even like I would love to try your brain out for a minute or two because
Mm-hmm.
it's you're already in Aquarius Mercury, so that energy is kind of already in there, and then you've got that aspect happening too, so it's like even more amped up. It's pretty cool.
I'll
So
let you borrow it on Wednesday.
right,
I
thank
don't
you,
need I don't need it Wednesday. You can have
thank you so much. I'll check it out.
it. So I have a question for you, Kaycee.
Yes.
How is your mediumship going? How can I help you?
Oh my goodness. Well, my mediumship has been it's been fascinating, a really fascinating journey because I did not think going into the class that I took. It was an intuitive thing to just take this class for some reason. And so I went into that class. I was like, I'm an astrologer. We do use our intuition on top of all of the study that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'd like to know more about my intuition and be able to use it better. That was the premise of me doing this. And then I got in there, and then my teacher Miss Carrie just threw us in and had us start doing stuff. And I was doing mediumship, and I was like, what the hell is that about?
Spirit was like, "Hey, baby," and they
Yeah.
give you it all up front, and then they're like, "Now you got to earn it."
He literally, it was like, whoa, what? So
Mm-hmm.
that was mind blowing to me. So over the past year, a little bit over a year at this point, it's been a very interesting process. My grandfather, who I never met in life, he died in 1970. It seems like he kind of stepped forward almost. I think he's maybe a guide of mine. I
Mm-hmm.
would bet money on it at this point because he's very active, and has been like helping me. I feel like
That's
do this.
awesome.
It's been very, very interesting. So that has been like kind of how it's been developing, especially for the last, I don't even know, maybe like 7 or 8 months. It has been my grandparents, especially my
Mm-hmm.
grandfather, which is bizarre because I didn't know him in life, and obviously you don't need to, but that it was weird to me because I was like, my grandmother was like another parent to me, so I that was a very strong connection. But this was like a very different type of energy that I was experiencing, and like somebody that's basically a stranger to me, but is related to me. So uh, it's been very fascinating. I feel like so much more in flow in my life. There's a
Yes.
lot less doubt, because, like I said, I didn't set out to become an astrologer. I didn't set out to become a medium. However, everything seems to have been orchestrated almost with intention, which has been the wildest thing. And I'm sure you know all about it because it's happened to
Mm-hmm.
you. And
Well, I have a question.
yeah.
Would you have just delved into this by yourself? So, like, let's say mediumship. Would you
Mhm.
have done that by yourself?
I mean, I did sign up for that class on my own, so I would
But
have.
pre astrology, would you have done that?
Pre-astrology, probably not. It wouldn't have
Probably not.
occurred to me. It wouldn't have occurred to
Right.
me.
Would you have thought it was weird?
I'm a
A little bit.
Scorpio, so not really, but
Hmm.
like honestly, I was such a I mean, I'm still an atheist, like I don't, which sounds kind of weird.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Okay, I was an atheist. It's fine. It's fine.
But I
Never
mean, it's
judge.
not that I don't I don't think that I think that everything is one thing,
Yeah, I
basically.
agree. I agree.
So like that's so if that just some atheists would probably like get out like that's every group that I'm in. So there would be somebody that would be like, you're not a real whatever we are, you know.
Hmm. That's why it's easier to say you're the
Hmm.
religion of man,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and
Human condition.
exactly. And that's what I view my astrology work is like I study people. I study people, I study humanity, I study what the
Hmm.
fuck we're doing here.
You know
Yeah.
what I think? This is what I think.
Yes, please tell me.
I think spirit sets things up to make it easier to digest based on your learning style,
Hmm.
but also your comfort level and life experience.
Yeah.
So I always think that like if you're being pulled to something, try it out. Even if you're uncomfortable, you're obviously being pulled there for a reason, but do it at your own pace
Yeah.
and do it at your own comfort level. So like if you're just like, hey, I want to try astrology, this is really great, and
Hmm.
then you feel kind of that nudge to go there, go there.
Yeah.
You're obviously being told to go there, so go there. And
Absolutely.
then feel it out. See how it works for you.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of what they did with me with the intuitive thing,
Hmm.
because they were like, oh well, he didn't think he's psychic. That's fine. And then they snuck it in there,
Right.
right? And now here, like years later, I'm like, I talk to dead people. Do
Mhm.
you? You know? Um, I love that. So where do you find like your most like challenging part of mediumship? Where are you finding that?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing for me has been, and it sounds really, really silly, but like I'm kind of like awkward when I talk, which is funny because I have a fucking podcast, so this is very funny. But I
Yeah.
kind of am awkward when I like talk to somebody that I don't know very well, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
I think right now I'm kind of training myself because I have been like very in my head and I was a very imaginative young person and stuff. And so it's kind of the same muscle, which was what I
Yeah.
discovered with mediumship. It was like, oh, I've been doing this my whole life, which is what my teacher told me. She's like, I think you've been doing this your whole life and just not known that's what you were doing.
It'll all click. It'll
Yeah.
all click.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's what, and I'm a writer too. So when I was doing screenwriting and I'm writing characters, it was it feels very similar to what I do in mediumship. Like I couldn't tell the difference. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess for me, it's been training myself to have like conversations essentially with
Mm-hmm.
spirit and to for it to be more of a back and forth instead of like I don't, this is very odd, but like when I have been in circles and stuff, a lot of times I'll get a spirit, you know, they'll kind of sit down with me and then they just kind of look at me and then I feel like I'm supposed to start talking and I'm like, oh man, fuck.
Yes, you are. You are. Okay, you want a tip? You want a
Yes,
tip?
please, please.
Describe your experience with them.
Mm,
Because I think one thing mediums discredit is they think that automatically we have to know 100% about the spirit
yeah,
communicator before we can start going, or we have to wait for them. But I want to let you know that there's nuance in everything.
yeah,
So one tip that I would give you, do you mind if I give you some
I
tips?
would love
I
a
know
tip.
your poor
Just the
teacher.
tip.
Okay, just a tip. I'm only going to give you just a tip. Well, I'm actually going to give you the whole thing, but that's fine. I'll sneak it in there. All right. So is turn your chair 3/4 of the way,
Okay.
right? Because it breaks that awkwardness between you and your sitter. And I think a lot of the times, if you're
Mm,
uncomfortable with people, it really draws your attention to be primarily on your spirit communicator,
yeah.
but almost like lean into your experience of like what they look like, how they're sitting, and just almost get that awkwardness out of the way. So,
Mm,
like, one thing that I did, and I teach my students to do, is to almost kind of like, hey, I have a gentleman here. This gentleman's sitting cross-legged. I almost feel like their hands would be on their shoulder. They feel really uptight. They almost feel uncomfortable. And I feel like their right shoulder's going up a little bit, but I almost feel like the stagnance with them. And then just let it rip
mm-hmm.
and just let yourself talk.
Yeah.
Even if you feel like you're not going to be correct, trust it because
Mm-hmm.
that's your experience with
Yeah.
this person, just like as if they were living,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think when you kind of learn, and I know you said earlier, I want that flow.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost allowing yourself permission to be wrong,
Yeah. Absolutely.
right? And when you break that tension and you break it and you're just kind of starting to go by your own experience, that information came from somewhere.
Yeah.
And so when you notice that with mediumship, it's two energies that rub on each other,
Mm-hmm.
they're impressing that feeling on you. And
Right.
we always discredit that
Mm-hmm.
it's us, but
Mm-hmm.
that information was handed to you.
Absolutely.
So I want you to like really just have fun in those moments where it's just like they're awkward and they're sitting there. Like play with that.
Okay.
Have fun with it. Like almost like give yourself permission to just kind of go, I'm gonna be wrong, but this is what it is. And then just check with your sitter. Do you
Yeah.
understand them sitting that way or them being
Mm-hmm.
awkward just staring at you? And
Yeah.
just see how it feels.
Yeah.
So that's my little tip for you. And I
That's
think that
great.
if you play with it more, you won't have that tension and awkwardness because your attention is going to be on somebody that you can't see versus the person that you can, and
Right.
that expectation of you being right is now
Mm-hmm.
vanished,
Yeah.
and you're
That
going to
just
let them
clicked for
speak.
me. That was a great tip. That was a great tip. And it's funny because yeah, it's just a matter of like getting very comfortable. I would say that one thing that I've noticed through development is that, coming from being an astrologer, doing development, I am a lot less afraid of the nose now in every
Yeah.
area of my life, which has been probably my favorite thing about the whole experience because you have to be okay with getting no's and
Mm-hmm.
it becomes like not a big deal. And so I really am so grateful that through the development process, like that weight has been taken off of me.
Yeah,
It's been wonderful.
you've learned to trust yourself, but you've also learned to trust the spirit world because you know that it's not necessarily a no forever,
Hmm.
and that they could be giving you something that could be associated with their the sitter's loved one or
Yeah.
the person receiving the reading's loved one. Let me talk like people don't know mediumship, Matt.
Hmm.
uh, but also it could happen later on,
Yeah.
right? And I think the most beautiful readings, whether they're psychic, astrology, or mediumship, are things that are almost breadcrumbs to let them know that I'm going to be watching you in the future as well,
Yeah.
right? And this is going to happen. And so there's no pressure in no. Actually, no is a celebratory word.
Hmm.
And I think when you truly know and you get a no in mediumship, you'll feel it and you'll know it's wrong before it even comes out of your mouth. Like you'll
Right.
start to say the word and you're like, ah, that's going to be wrong, right? Because you learn to trust
Right.
and you learn to trust the power of the spirit world that's going to guide you to where it needs to go. And those are the most moving readings. Like
Hmm.
I've never seen a platform medium. Now you can either agree to disagree that has wowed an audience in platform mediumship
Hmm.
with all yeses.
Right.
Have you ever noticed it's usually the ones that get the no and then
Hmm.
they rephrase it just a little bit or they kind of work into it that it ends up being like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because that moves people.
Hmm.
And so don't be afraid of the word no.
Yeah. I think too, it seems like the spirit world kind of sets us up to take the nose, and it can be more impressive, like you're saying, to turn it around after getting no's and then, prove yourself. It's almost like even more impactful because I had a reading, actually it was with Dana and it was on a live stream, and I was like I had the weirdest experience with that reading because of what I was just experiencing like in that moment. I had this like I've had readings before, plenty of readings. I had this rush of physical energy. And that experience gave me a lot of sympathy for sitters and like sometimes the psychic amnesia that they'll have because it was
Mm-hmm.
like totally disorienting in just this really physical way. And it was just yeah, it was fascinating to go
Do
through.
you know what that was though?
What
That
was
was
it?
that was the spirit world and the
Yeah.
way that it radiates off the medium and it almost moves you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really disorienting.
It was.
And so I give you credit because I listened to that. It was a
Yeah,
beautiful reading.
it was.
But you could hear it how you were touched.
It
And I
was,
think
yeah.
that's what the spirit world wants. So if
Mm-hmm.
I was to give any parting advice before, I know we got to wrap this up. I gotta respect boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And she has no boundaries that I know about. Is that the spirit world wants, whether you're an astrologer, a
Mm-hmm.
psychic, and all that, they want you the best in your craft.
Mm-hmm.
They want you to work on yourself so you can be the best vessel that you possibly can be for other people. But they want you to know that you're a part of them and they're a part of you and how accessible and easy they are there and that we don't need to search far and high but all you have to do is go with internal and sit with yourself. Take time. That's the reason why we meditate, right? We want to sit within our own self. And so trust your voice, that you're unique and that you were designed perfectly perfect by the universe to place you in your seventh house of Uranus to be exactly where you are. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that. Trust yourself. You're the truth. The spirit world's the truth. That's all I got to say.
That was beautiful, Mathew Tow. Well, thank you for being here. I would
Welcome.
love if people that listen to this podcast would check you out on TikTok. As I said, you're a phenomenal
Thank
medium,
you.
reader, and I really enjoy your podcast. It's called I'm a Medium. Ask Me How if you're looking to learn more about mediumship and your intuition, or if you just want to get readings and hear more about that process. It's a really great educational resource. And thank you for being here. Thank you so much for coming on Petty Astrology.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I think I just fell in love with you. So, Dana, watch out, girl. Watch
Oh my
out.
God. Like what a compliment, but also like slay. All right.